Let's talk about menopause then,
Yeah.
starting with perimenopause.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is me. I'm 44, so I'm obviously perimenopausal. And I've really just, it's so connected to my anxiety because when I'm in the luteal phase of my cycle and when I'm ovulating, I just seem to have so much more difficulty trying to control my anxiety. Sorry if there's wind or noise. I'm doing my usual laps around the garden trying to move my body. But it's just not something that I thought about before. The fact that, I was in perimenopause because I kind of thought that I'd probably be older. But even from doing carnivore last year and from doing it now, well, I'm pretty much carnivore-ish at the moment. But I'm noticing even differences now in 1 year. And I think when you're a woman in your 40s, or early 50s, 1 year is a hell of a long time hormonally, and we just didn't really know about it. So, as I said before, Dr. Stacey Sims here, I've changed the way that I eat. Because of her, I no longer think when all the carnivores are talking about how they only have to eat once a day or twice a day, and like that's a good thing. Like for me, yeah, I lost lots of weight and all that, but it didn't make me feel kind of stable throughout the day. And now that I eat like 3 times a day, the weight has stayed off, but I feel stable. But anyway, this is a little conversation about women's hormones.
You got a smile on your face.
Ah, it's something that I'm really excited is coming into conversations now because 3 years ago, no one would say the word. I knew we had made it as women in society when the nightly news was talking about menopause. So let's go. I'm excited.
One thing I saw, which is quite an interesting observation, is in the UK this year on Apple, the most shared podcast episode in the whole country of all podcasts was a conversation I had about menopause.
Nice.
And
Congratulations. That's awesome.
it gets even better. And in the US, the most shared podcast episode of all podcasts in the US on Apple was the same guest on Mel Robbins' podcast talking about menopause.
That's really cool. I mean, it just shows how many people are actually getting their medical advice from fucking podcasts now instead of their actual doctors. And if you've been in the ketogenic therapy, carnivore, for whatever reason, but especially if you're in the mental health kind of area like me, like it's crazy the amount of people who have changed their life based on what they've heard on podcasts and people talking about their experiences on YouTube and not from doctors. But this is like a pure example of how people aren't getting their information from the usual sources anymore. Like it's crazy.
That's incredible, and also crazy that in both countries, the number one most shared podcast episode was the same guest talking about the same topic.
Yep.
That doesn't surprise you.
Nope.
Why?
Well, I know this guest and she's very good at articulating, but also we have seen this upsurge of women like myself, my age group, put myself out there. We all grew up on the understanding that we were women, we were a little bit different from men, but no one told us about menopause. And now all of a sudden, there are these extreme changes that are going on, and people are like, what's going on? And if I were to take a typical case scenario of a woman who's in her 40s and goes to a doctor and goes, you know what? I can't sleep. I am trying to exercise, but I'm so tired. I can't do it. My body is changing, and I just don't know what's going on.
Yeah, so this time I thought that by the time I reached day 30, that I would be a lot more energetic because I remember the last time I was. And I don't know, I've put down a lot of it to be like, it wasn't as bad emotionally or physically as it was the first time. And I think a lot of that had to do with oxalate dumping, because I think the real reason why I suffered so much the first time I went keto and then carnivore was because I was oxalate dumping like a mad thing, because I'd eaten so many plants and nuts and seeds and all that for so long before I tried it. But this time I cannot muster the energy for exercise. Like, I literally have to force myself every day to go for a run, even kind of like I'm just like walking around and things, and it's like I don't have that energy in my body. And I don't know if it's, again, I'm just getting into fat adaptation, or if maybe it has something to, maybe this is actually just something that's not going to come because I'm perimenopausal. I never would have thought of that before listening to this.
The general response to her 3 years ago would have been, well, look, you're a woman in her 40s who's highly stressed. You have kids on one side, you have older parents on another. You're right in the middle of your career. You have a really busy life. Here's an SSRI for anxiety and depression. It's going to help you sleep. But now, with all the conversations that have been going on, a woman in her 40s will go to a GP and for the most part will be told, well, you're in your 40s, it might be perimenopause. And this is such a...
Imagine like giving people fucking SSRIs for being tired. Oh man, it's crazy what goes on.
relief to so many women because they're not being gaslit anymore. They're not being told that what they're feeling isn't true. It's just something to do with stress. Now they're being told, you know what? All your systems in your body are being affected because your sex hormones are changing. So remember puberty, when everything was changing and no one wants to live through puberty anymore? You're on the other side of that. You're in reverse puberty, where all of your hormones are starting to downregulate. So every system in your body is being affected. Let's unpack it. Let's see what's going on. So when Mary Claire comes on and talks about menopause as an MD and talks about all the things that she's seeing
I'm going to find the link to this podcast woman that they're obviously talking about, and I'll put it in the description.
in her clinic, women are like, that's me. Now I understand I'm not alone. And that's the power that's coming through all of these conversations and all of these groups like Naomi Watts' Swell group, right? They're talking about menopause. So now women are listening and keying in and going, wait a second, there actually are things that are occurring to me and I can get information, which is why these podcasts are taking off, because now women are like, I'm not just crazy. There are actually things happening to me and people understand that. Now, what can I do to help myself? Because it isn't being taught in med school. A lot of the doctors that are out there are getting information because they are seeking it out themselves.
That's crazy. It's the exact same thing with the nutrition that they tell you they got 15 minutes of nutrition talk in med school in like the 6 or 8 years or whatever they're in med school. And apparently they're not learning about menopause either, like which half the population, goes through. It's crazy.
And looking to people like Mary Claire and other like Louise Newsom in the UK, who are actually talking about it and saying, these are the things that are happening and these are the things that we know that we can do.
Gosh, it's a shame, isn't it? It's a shame that there must have been so many women over the years that went to their doctor and got really bad advice.
Yeah.
And were given antidepressant medications and stuff like that. And
well, the other side is women who are in their reproductive years who have something like PCOS or endometriosis, or they're having irregular periods and they're put on an oral contraceptive pill.
This freaks me out so much because I was on the oral contraceptive pill like from about 16 until probably like until I was nearly 40, and I noticed a hell of a difference when I came off it. About 6 months after I was off it, I realized that things just didn't make me angry the way that they had made me angry before. And that's kind of weird, like things would enrage me, like to the point where I'd have almost like no control over how angry I was getting about something, especially if it was like somebody had done something, and I just would be like, I'd be so angry with them. And that doesn't happen since I came off the pill. And that just makes me think, like, I went on it when I was 16, and things that I used to just think that I was like a bit nuts, I was a bit crazy, you know, got the mental health problems, and maybe I'm just a bit of an angry lunatic kind of person. And now I'm kind of thinking, my God, like, the whole time it could have just been the pill making my hormones go crazy, and that's how it came out in me, was that I, you know, had like really like get really angry with people sometimes. And that's scary because they're putting fucking kids on this stuff. They're telling us that it's the solution to so many things. And like it changed my personality. I swear, like I'm gonna make a video about somebody else who talks about the oral contraceptive, but I honestly think it changed my personality, or at least heightened the crazy that I already had. Like, but yeah, it definitely did, and I just took it and just assumed that that was just my personality, just the way that I was, because I went on it so young. Imagine they're putting 13-year-olds on this.
because the doctors don't understand that there are other things that are going on that will cause a misstep in menstrual cycle. So I get frustrated when teenage girls go to a doctor with irregular cycles and they're handed OCs like Skittles. It's like, that's not appropriate either. We have to actually understand what's going on. We know that there's irregularity in a menstrual cycle until people are around 3 years post the onset of their first menstrual cycle. It's not unusual. And OC is not the answer. If someone's still having irregularity, we have to look at lifestyle and say, hey, what's going on? If they're having really heavy menstrual bleeding, it's not about using an OC to control it. Let's look and see, why is that happening? Maybe we use an IUD, or maybe we use some other medication to help. But there's a lot of things that are not taught in med school that women are having to find out for themselves. And so when we listen to podcasts and we're hearing information from...
It's so true. It's so true. Like, when I started, because I wanted to get more exercise, so I got a treadmill, because obviously I'm agoraphobic, so I got a treadmill, and I started listening to podcasts just walking on the treadmill. And so I started listening to YouTube, to, you know, snippets of things on YouTube. And that's how I came across all of this stuff. Just YouTube. And like, it's crazy to me that, you know, none of it was talked to me by a doctor, but like, they're saying that even the doctors don't know. Like, she's basically saying they're not even taught about half of this stuff in med school. They have to go looking for themselves. I don't know, man. The whole system is crazy.
medical doctors who now have a vocal aspect of being able to touch so many people, it resonates. So now doctors are trying to find that information if they have the time. But we know the healthcare systems in most countries, doctors are so pressed for time, they don't have that opportunity.
Anyway, yeah, it's an interesting chat. My dogs are going crazy, so I'm going to sign off. Hope everyone's doing well.